the offseason, obviously you can stay in touch with players more now in the offseason than in years past, but how's the offensive line done in terms of the goals that they've been setting for themselves, you set for them? What have you seen from them since spring?
Well, the good thing about the summer is that it's just them, and you want to build that trust within the unit. We got a couple new faces, a couple guys stepping up that hadn't been in the rotation, that possibly fighting their way into the rotation. So I want them to build that kind of cohesiveness together and understanding what the goal was as the unit, coming up with their own identity, what they want to do, and hold them accountable to what they want to be. But I thought throughout the summer they did a good job.
What does your group do? I'm sure, the player run practice is probably the hardest for those guys to get work, because I'm sure they're not going full contact or anything, maybe not even going 11-11.
Yeah.
How do they kind of work in that setting? From what they tell you?
A lot of movement reaction things, a lot of pass setting is what they kind of sent them sights on. And I think, they've been taking the young guys. I think they said they were taking them through BPUs and stuff like that to try to teach them the base protection. But if they're doing anything together, as long as it's together and there's a standard and they're holding the young guys accountable, I'm good with whatever they decide to do. But the time I get with them, with the workout portion of it, it's more conditioning. So cone drills, change direction, body reaction, movement reaction, things like that.
I think, Coach, you and Coach Norvell for years now talked about kind of want to have that group of, I forget what the number is, 8, 10. It has to be larger than 5. And I know y'all may had that last year. I think we definitely do this year. I guess what kind of difference does that make going into the preseason?
Yeah, 8 is the number that you want to have ready to go play a game. I think we're right at, we travel about 11. So you still got 3 more guys coming along with you that's going to possibly go in and contribute. So, it's been a process of building that depth, and we got some good depth, But I've been really pleased with the young guys that's been pushing those older guys. I tell my older guys, if you ask them, I say, what's my favorite thing to do is bench older guys. I enjoy that because they have to continue to get better and set the standard. And also it lets those young guys know that there's no favoritism. That's one of my favorite things to do. And I haven't had to do that much because our older guys are taking a lot of ownership and doing a good job. So, when the day comes, I'm gonna be excited for it.
You talked about 8. I think Coach Norvell last week at AC Kickoff mentioned possibly maybe there be certain games where you might rotate in and play 8 in a game, even if kind of nobody goes down. I guess how would that work, and what kind of goes into preparing for that?
Well, we did it last year with Darius and Jazz. Depending upon the matchup, the week-to-week deal, they both were healthy, and there were certain matchups that fit guys better than others, and so that was a good deal we had. So now we got the same kind of deal with KJ working, Meach, Casey, Jalen Early, different matchups on the inside that can help. Also multiple guys that play center, so in matchups and things like that. And also the tackle position with Bless, Rob, Darius, who's also won games for us on the edge, Byers, who's won games on the edge and inside. So it's fun as they're learning it, but that's beyond what we're about to do right now. Right now, what we're about to do is make sure we can understand the basic elements to how to go win a football game.
Just one more on that note. Defensive lines talked about a lot of the interior. If you could split reps, you can keep your bodies fresh. Does that hold for the offensive line too? Is that a benefit of being able to rotate guys in and out? Is it you get better reps out of them?
Yeah, I don't think of more of as freshness. That is a possibility because we don't have a huge drop off, but it's more matchups. But once the guy's out there pretty rolling, we should be in shape to go play a whole game.
When you have as much experience and versatility as you have on the line, just how much of a challenge is it to find the right fit and what goes into that?
Well, I wouldn't call it a challenge. It's just more of the group understands what it needs to be to go out there. So they better clearly display it or they just won't go out there. So they know what it is. They know what it got to look like for them to go out there and get the multiple reps and be trusted. It's not a secret or some grading skill or anything like that. They know exactly what needs to show up for them to be trusted to go in the game. Now, if it's an equal deal, I'm always going to go with the younger guy, and they know that.
How would you categorize Robert's progress in spring and getting back up to full speed?
Well, getting healthy. Robert's played a lot of football around here, so that's never going to be a problem for him. But I think this is probably the best his body has felt in a long time.
And then Jeremiah, looks like he could be a Swiss Army knife for you on that line. Mm-hmm. Is there a place that you want to steer him in camp, or is it just he can play a lot of different things, so you're going to move him around and see what works best?
He's still getting familiar with the offense, so I'm keeping him solely at one spot, the right tackle position. That's what I do before I start moving him around. I want them to feel comfortable with the offense because we ask them to do a lot of things in his offense. So before I start just, hey, you playing guard this practice, a tackle, a left tackle, I try to keep him in one spot until they have a full understanding. He's only been in the offense for 15 practices. So hopefully by mid-camp, he's feeling a little comfortable. I can say, all right, go in there guard, go in there. And he can do it physically, there's no question, but I want to make sure I'm not giving him a disadvantage by asking him to do things he hadn't become a master of.
going into the start of fall camp, how solidified a kind of a depth chart do you have in your own head, or is it written down somewhere? Is it fairly still fluid in terms of moving guys around and seeing kind of the right five?
I mean, you got some guys that are definitely, Maurice Smith, I mean, there's no question. He's going to be the guy. He's always been the guy. I mean, he's done a really good job. And I tell him every year I try to replace him. He always up for the challenge. He is. I tell him every year, I sit him down and say, I'm looking for somebody to do better than you. And he say, come on, bring him. So, but Mo that's the kind of guy he is. That's how he's always been. That's why he's developing the player he's become. So he's the one I would say solidified. The rest of them, we're going to have some fun this summer.
Casey, I know, had played a lot of spots. You've tried some at center. I guess what kind of progress have you seen from him at that, especially with the snapping? Because I don't know if he's the guy who might be kind of the number 2 there.
Well, he's a little bit different than JB because he's played a lot of football, so his knowledge of the game picked up quickly. So he was able to go quickly and learn from it. So he's been able to play. You saw him at center in the spring, both guard positions, possibly emergency tackle. He did that at Colorado. So it's just more of him solidifying the spot he's going to play, which I think he'll do a good job.
Between Julian and Jalen Early, could both of those guys make noise this camp and compete for top spots, or are they still in the development process?
Absolutely, they can make some noise. I think with them it's just overcoming the mental part of the transition. Their body's got to catch up. They got to get stronger. They've only been through one true off season, and then Julian, he had the ankle setback after the season. We had him down for a minute, so it's just more catching up mentally, and their body's catching up physically to be able to withstand practice, withstand that adversity. Once they break through that wall, they'll be able to make some noise.
How significant was it to get Big Meech back?
Awesome. Just older leadership, and also appreciation. You got people in the room that appreciate where they are and come to work every day, loving it every day, and not seeing it as a chore that wears off on those young guys.
Have you seen the room change like that, develop over the time that you've been here to where maybe they govern themselves in a way they couldn't when you first got here?
It's a continuing process because you add new people. Yeah. So, you add some people in every year, so it's a continuing process. Yeah, absolutely, because they take ownership in it. I mean, you got some guys that have been in that room for a long time, from Darius Washington to Maurice Smith to Robert Scott to Bless, who's been here going on 2 years long. You got Thomas Schrader, a name that people hadn't heard because he's coming off injury, things like that. Meech, so we have guys that have been in that room for a long time that know the coach and know what the expectation is, so that helps those young guys progress even better.
Do you have a new, who is, if there is one, the new Dylan Gibbons in that room, that guy who seems like kind of the vocal leader, the guy who brings it all together?
Yeah, I mean, right now we got some guys that's bidding for that spot. I would say the leadership when they speak is Mo. When he speaks, they listen. He's just not going to go out there and give 10,000 speeches and all that kind of stuff. But when he speaks and sees things, he's more of that one-on-one, relationship-based. I'm going to go get this right behind the scenes. But when he speaks, they listen. And when he raises, and that's a big deal. And I think there's some other guys kind of getting into that deal. Casey's earned some of that trust, being an older guy and been through it. KJ, Keandre, he's been a guy that's earned a little bit of that spot. So we'll see as it continues to progress. Darius, when he's at his top of his game. So I'm interested to see who becomes that.
You talked about Bless. I'm sure it was frustrating for basketball him coming here, playing one game, and then the season being over last year. What have you seen from him this offseason?
Steady Eddie. Bless, coming into last year, he was starting tackle. And now, he's working a lot with the 1-2. He's working at both tackles. He knows the offense. He's got his upper body strength. So, Bless can put it together. I think he can be a guy for us.
In terms of the offensive responsibilities, there's a lot of skill position players that can do some things, do some damage for you. How would you handicap the receiver position? Johnny and Keon have both, Keon wasn't here last year, but they've proven at the D1 level they can be a force. What about behind them on that depth chart?
Yeah, I mean, even when you talk about, we don't know behind yet because we got some guys that's really rolling. I think the solidified one is Johnny for sure. But we got, when you really look at it, is you got guys that developed and became guys, and you also got guys that came in with experience. Guys like Tron, guys like Darion, who if he doesn't have that setback, he got some talent and some tools. So I'm excited to see him stay healthy this summer and see what he can do. But yeah, you got Keon, you got Ja'Kai Douglas, who's been in the program a long time. You got Winston Wright, who's feeling better than he's ever felt. Of course, Big Tron. I'm excited to see all of those. And you got some new guys that just got here. We're fatting those guys, so it's gonna be fun to see. But what I tell the receivers is this: everybody want to be the receivers. That's what every group wants to be, the receivers. They're the ones that everybody knows about. They get most of the attention on the field and off the field. So if they're the leaders of our team, if they're the most unselfish group, if they're out working people, if they're out hustling people, we'll be a really good offense.
We saw recently, I think on Twitter, the before and after pictures a year ago from Trey Benson, from what he looked like a year ago to now. He was physically impressive a year ago. To add that weight, I guess, what have you seen from him? What do you expect of him coming into this year?
Well, first, you got to credit Bill Bastorms. Our strength and conditioning staff nutrition with Jay, they all do a phenomenal job. But also it's the buy-in of the players. Like you can put the program in front of them, you can hold them accountable to it, but if they don't buy into it, you don't get the results you're looking for. You're just checking off a box. And that's a player that ain't checking off a box. He's going on to go get what he want to go get. So I'm rooting for him.